You know, we've all had that thought. When a student uses AI for their homework, are they actually learning anything? Or have they just found a really high-tech way to cheat? Well, today, we're diving into a new feature that tries to solve that exact problem. It's all about turning AI into a real learning partner, not just a shortcut.
And really, this is the question, isn't it? It's at the very heart of the whole debate around AI in education. On one hand, you've got this incredibly powerful tool that could completely personalize learning. But on the other, you've got the risk that it just short-circuits the whole process. It's a really fine line, and today, we're going to explore how we can stay on the right side of it.
So let's talk about the problem itself, the core issue. And it's kind of ironic, is that AI can sometimes be a little too helpful. And while that sounds great, its power can actually get in the way of real learning.
I mean, think about it. A student's stuck on a tough math problem. They ask a chatbot for help, and boom, it just spits out the final answer. Or maybe they need to write an essay, and the AI just writes the whole thing for them. That's not supporting learning, that's straight up replacing it. The most important part, that critical thinking, the struggle, is just gone.
This right here, this visual really nails the two paths AI can take. On the left, you've got the cheat sheet. It just hands you the answer, no questions asked. But on the right, you've got the tutor, the guide who asks questions, who prods you, who encourages you to think for yourself. And that tutor is exactly what we're aiming for.
So the big question is, how do you actually push AI into that tutor role? Well, let's take a look at a specific feature Google built that's designed to do exactly that. The whole goal is to create real active learning.
It's called guided learning, and the goal is so simple, but it's really powerful. Get the learner involved. So instead of just giving an answer away, Gemini will explain some of the basics and then start a conversation, pulling the student into a back and forth to actually get them thinking.
All right, so that sounds great in theory, but what does guided learning actually look like when you use it? Let's put it to the test with two classic student assignments, a really tricky math problem and a pretty tough essay prompt. Okay, here's our first test. It's a standard compound interest problem. You know, this is exactly the kind of question where a student's eyes might start to glaze over, and that temptation to just look up the final number is huge. And wow, the difference is immediate. Look at the left side without guided learning. Gemini just solves it. Boom, there's your answer, $8,625. But now look at the right. With guided learning turned on, it doesn't give the answer at all. Instead, it starts by reviewing the formula and then asks the student to take the very first step. It's a conversation starter, not an answer key.
And you can see how that conversation plays out right here. It's this back and forth process. So first, the student gets the principal amount right. Great. But then they make a super common mistake with the interest rate, a simple decimal error. Now, instead of just fixing it, the AI gently nudges them, it explains the rule, and then asks them to try again. See? It's teaching the process, not just handing over the final product.
Okay, let's switch gears from math over to writing. This prompt is perfect because it captures that blank page anxiety, right? That moment where a student feels totally overwhelmed and just has no idea where to even begin.
And the contrast here is just as stark. On the left, without this feature, the AI basically becomes a ghostwriter. It just pumps out a full essay. But with guided learning, it acts like a brainstorming partner. It gives a quick overview and then immediately hands the reins back to the student, asking them to make the first big decision.
It essentially becomes a writing partner that uses the Socratic method. It'll check for understanding with questions like, hey, do you know which US agency was founded to win the space race? It helps you brainstorm ideas for a killer opening hook, but it never, ever writes it for you. It's there for feedback and guidance, but the student is always the one actually doing the writing.
Now, this whole tutor-like approach isn't just for math problems or essays. This is where it gets really interesting, because its real potential is how versatile it is across all kinds of learning.
Just imagine using it to prep for a big biology exam, or to do a deep dive on a topic for a research paper. You could even use it just to explore something you're passionate about, like photography, or, and this is a big one, to help you figure out what's wrong with a piece of code you've written. In every single one of these scenarios, the goal is exactly the same. The AI is there to help you think, to help you question, and ultimately, to help you work through the process yourself.
So why are we focusing so much on just one feature? What's the big deal here? Well, because what we're really talking about is a fundamental shift in the whole philosophy of how AI can, and maybe should, be used in education.
This isn't just some cool tech demo, it's a philosophy. And what's so fascinating is that it's actually backed up by solid research. A recent study from MIT looked at this exact dynamic.
What happens when AI does the work for you versus when it just gives you feedback?
And the results from that study, laid out right here, could not be clearer. Just look at that top row. When the AI does all the work, students show lower understanding, they feel less ownership over the work, and, get this, the final quality of the work is actually lower too. But now look at the bottom row. When students have to wrestle with the material themselves and just use AI for feedback, every single one of those metrics goes up. Higher understanding, higher ownership, and a higher quality final product. It's incredible.
And that really gets to the heart of it all. This is the mission statement for this whole approach. The focus shifts away from getting that quick, easy answer to the much, much more valuable goal of genuine understanding.
So this all leaves us with a really big question, not just about this feature, but about the future of learning itself. In a world where every single answer is literally one click away, tools like this suggest that the real skill isn't about finding answers anymore. Maybe the real skill is learning how to ask the right questions and how to build our own understanding from the ground up.